We've forgotten that there's a God that we have to answer.
Dealing with people who reject truth.
I'm wondering in my mind why life is so difficult for me.
340 million people who are suffering.
Real stories.
Here's a man who's responsible for almost 7 billion people.
Real issues.
How much does peer pressure actually exist?
And real views.
Gangs exist at every level.
This is Real Talk.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon everybody that is watching this show, and we hope you are having a great life and enjoying it to the fullest. This is another episode of Real Talk USA, where we are going to look at America, the land of opportunity, the land of plenty. But do you also have the opportunity to be hungry? And why are there plenty of hungry people in this country? These are some questions we're going to look at today as we focus on the topic of hunger in America. We're going to listen to some real views. We'll hear some real stories. This is Real Talk.
It was an experience no volunteer who participated in will soon forget. On a day's notice, Khuddam came together to help feed over 1,000 people left displaced from their homes by Hurricane Sandy. Long Island, New York was one of the locations most devastatingly affected by the hurricane. Even after a week of recovery, many families were going day after day without a warm meal. America's leading Muslim youth organization wanted to help and make a difference. They teamed up with the Red Cross at their Nassau County shelter. Volunteers came from the entire New York metro region, New Jersey, Connecticut, and as far away as Maryland. Zishan Hamid donated his restaurant to cook a massive amount of food. Once prepared, Khuddam loaded the pasta and soup into a trailer and took it to the shelter where 1,000 thankful recipients enjoyed the meal. The staff of the shelter was amazed by all the volunteers who came together at the last minute and made dinner possible. Remarkably, even after feeding all the people at the shelter, there was food left over. Rather than wasting it, the volunteers actively sought out another shelter to donate the food. They drove 30 minutes away to another shelter that barely had electricity and gave them what they needed. But the food wasn't finished yet. The Khuddam that night ended up going to 3 different fire departments in Long Island and gave each a tray or 2 of pasta. The firefighters were deeply appreciative of the efforts. America's leading Muslim youth organization lived up to its commitment to serve those in need.
Good afternoon, Guinness, and assalamu alaikum to you all. Peace be upon you. We are here at the New Jersey Convention and Exposition Center in Edison, New Jersey, where to my right I am joined by the stewards of this Guinness World Record attempt, and I will introduce them to you. We have Zamir Mirza here, we have Abu Bakr bin Saeed, we have Malik Sutkoi, and we have Abdur Rahim Latif, the tall man in the back, Arif Qureshi here. These will be our stewards. To my left, we have the witnesses. And to my left, we have James Massenberg, who is an Affian for Capital One Bank. We have Rakiba Kibria, who is part of the Why Hunger organization and very well knowledge in this field. And then we have the mayor of this fair city, Edison, New Jersey. We have Mayor Antonia Ristigliano. So without further ado, let's get started on this Guinness World Record, and let's get these 200 gentlemen into this dining hall to start assembling these bags. So let the cameras roll.
Gentlemen, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, begin.
All right, so if you want to go ahead and look around and check it out. After you. You're gonna take it. So right now we're running the clock down because everyone's done. Everyone's done here.
How many seconds left? 30 seconds.
Oh.
30 seconds left. You have to use these watches. That's okay.
20 seconds.
10, say countdown.
10, 9, 8, 7,
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Congratulations, you have broken the world record.
We're standing here with the mayor of Edison, New Jersey, Mayor Restigliano, and she is about to give a pronouncement to Sadr MKA. So take it away, Mayor.
Thank you, Salam. I would like to congratulate the Ahmadiyya Muslim Youth Organization, the leading Muslim youth organization in the United States, for their breaking of a Guinness World Record. And stop to think of what you have achieved. You've come together, you are serving humanity and having fun while you're doing it, but you're also an inspiration to the young people coming in. And this is what we should all be about. This is how we train our children. We lead by example. And your example has been a wonderful display of what it means to be a leader. I thank you and I congratulate you.
You want to say anything, Sam?
Pardon our passion. We only mean great love. And we direct that at you, our dear mayor, the city of Edison, and this great country that has opened its heart to us and accepted us. And we are very lucky, and this is a very proud moment for us, Majlis Khuddam Al-Ahmadiyya. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of our heart. You let us do this. You were a part of this. You talked about great leadership. You came here on your weekend, spent the entire day with us, and we find that very loving and touching. So we thank you, and we really appreciate this.
So today we are joined by a couple of great panelists. We are in the great city of Edison, New Jersey, and we are joined by the mayor of Edison, New Jersey, Mayor Antonia Restigliano, who is the first female mayor of this great city, and she is also a retired teacher, so hopefully she'll teach us some things today. Welcome to the show, Mayor.
Thank you, and thank you for the kind invitation.
And seated next to her, to my right, we have the Vice President of Majlis Khuddam Al-Ahmadiyya USA, the leading Muslim youth organization in America, Zishan Hamid. He oversees all the service operations that MKA USA does, which includes walkathons, Guinness World Record breaking events, and much, much more. Welcome to the show, Zishan Bhai.
Thank you for having me.
And so we also have a wonderful studio audience here who is just full of stories to share, and stories to share with you who are sitting at home. Real stories, real issues that they've gone through, and solutions that we can provide to why there's hunger in America and essentially globally as well. So let's get right to it. I mean, let's really talk about the problem. In the US, the statistics show that 1 out of 6 people face hunger. Now, in your experiences with poverty, with the people who are hungry, what's the definition of hunger? How hungry do you have to be to fall into that category of 1 out of 6 people are hungry?
Well, when you think of the numbers in this, as you said, the land of plenty, really it is inconceivable that anyone should go to bed hungry. And some of the things that government can do, not at the local level, because we truly are limited in what we can do, but at the county, state, and national level, there are programs. We recognize that there are many people who go to bed hungry, men, women, and children. And there are programs that have been put in place. There are programs such as food stamps. There are programs such as Meals on Wheels, where local, some faith-based and civic organizations work with government to make sure that people are fed, and they're fed healthy meals. It is so important not only for the most vulnerable, which would be our children and our senior citizens, but it's important for all of us.
Now, Zishan, you're also in the food industry in your side job. Your restaurant business is on Long Island. Long Island is a pretty well-to-do area in many parts, but in other parts, not so much. What do you see, especially being in the food business? How do restaurants deal with hungry people that can't afford to eat there?
Well, you know, regardless of where you are in the country, I think in every city, every town of this nation, there are people who are unfortunate and they do not have access to food on a regular basis. On Long Island, what we used to do is every Eid al-Adha, we would take the meat from Qurbani that the local Muslim youth and member of the Majlis Khuddam al-Ahmadiyya had sacrificed, and I would cook it at the restaurant. And we would bring food to a local food pantry. It was called the INN, Interfaith Nutrition Network. And you would be amazed that this is Long Island, you know, very wealthy, good, well-to-do neighborhood. And there would be a line of over 300 people during lunch coming to get food. And it's amazing how, you know, people that, you know, they were in their normal everyday clothing, and if you were to see them on the street, you wouldn't think that they were hungry. You would think that they were, you know, they were wearing things that I would wear, you would wear, anybody else would wear. But they were standing on that line. So not only is hunger a challenge in this country, but also there are people who are ashamed to come out and say that I am hungry. I mean, they're a part of a statistic, but we don't know who that average Joe is, and that's really the challenge.
Now, in our audience today, we actually have people from all over the country. We have people from California, we have people from Chicago, and I actually want to take it to Kashif, who's coming from the great American city of Chicago. What kind of hungry people do you see there? I mean, you would think, as great a city as Chicago is, I mean, I'm sure there's something going on the side as well that's not so great.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's all relativity. I think the panelists have eloquently put that there are hungry people all over, but if you don't see it often, then it doesn't really hit home. Recently, our youth community went and partnered with a church, and we were able to serve food that we actually made to the homeless people. And as Mr. Zishan has just mentioned, they're normal people. They're wearing normal clothes. Some of them were actually really educated, and due to unfortunate circumstances, they went hungry. And to actually go there and help them, have conversation with them, you really feel thankful for even having water. So I think the more we talk about it and have conversations like this panel is doing today, I think the more the word will get out, and I think action will follow through, and we're obviously an example of that.
Now, Isra, seated right next to you, you're coming from California. LA, Los Angeles, yes. Another great city in America. Do you see the same thing going on over there?
Yeah, actually, it's unbelievable. There's actually homeless communities in Southern California, where I'm from. And it's very disheartening, and it's unbelievable that in the United States, which is a very wealthy country and has a lot of resources, that people do starve. And at our masjid in Batul Hamid, there's actually every Saturday, there's a group of brothers that make lunches for the homeless and go and distribute. But I think a lot of it has to do with the economic situation a lot of times, especially in this current time. Jobs are not as much in abundance. And then it's unbelievable that some people actually work 40 hours a week and they still receive food stamps and stand in lines at food banks. So it's very disheartening.
Now, Mayor, it's going to the food stamps points and other government programs. What's it like? What do you see in your city of Edison? What's the poverty rate? What's the hunger rate?
Well, one of the things that that has been attributed, and again, you're absolutely right, it's the current state of the economy. Although it is creeping back a little bit, people are being employed. Unemployment is not as great, but the number of people who are able to adequately survive today is really diminished because a lot of people are working, but they're part-time jobs. They're reduced hours because so many people are in the job market. Employers can really give less salaries. You know, a lot of good, hardworking people are not working, and they're not working as they did before. And one of the things that you were talking about, food pantries. In Edison, we have one that's particularly well known. We have several food pantries, but Hands of Hope. And what has been said to me is that many people who were the ones who donated to Hands of Hope over the years, because of the current economic trend, are now recipients. And they are, as you said, they're embarrassed because they feel, why can't they provide for their families when they are certainly more than willing to work, they are able to work, but the jobs either aren't there or they just are not able to get or maintain the same jobs that they had previously. So that's what we've seen. People who formerly were the ones who were the donors are now the recipients. So it's a different mindset. And again, a lot of them feel discouraged, but they also feel embarrassed, and they shouldn't, because through no fault of their own, they're in this situation.
So you said in Edison there's more? There's a significant amount of food pantries?
Yes, those that are going to the food pantry, the numbers have increased, and by a significant number. Again, we are not a poor town by any means, you know, and we're here in the metropolitan area, and for all intents and purposes, Edison is considered an affluent community, but the reality is people have not been able to access or do not have the jobs that they had previously. I'm hoping to see the job market come back, obviously, and we can see it just a little in Edison through people coming for permits to open businesses and building, you know, homes. And so I'm optimistic, but I think it's going to take a while. It's not going to happen overnight.
Now, we cited the statistic of 1 in 6 people in America facing hunger, but on a global scale, the United Nations reports that 1 out of 8 people face hunger, which means that in the United States, there are, by proportion, more hungry people than there are globally. Now, Zishan Bhai, what do you think about that?
I think that the United States captures the statistics much better than other countries in the world, and I have first-hand experience in other third world countries where someone is hungry but nobody really knows at all. Not because that person is not willing to tell, but I think there's just not a mechanism to really capture the challenge of hunger in some of these countries. But having said that, I was reading up on a statistic that said that worldwide, the food that is available is 17% higher than the average calorie intake of an individual. So food is out there, it's just the resourcing of food. It's not that there's a shortage in the production of food, in crops and other things, but the distribution of food is where the challenge is, the haves versus the have-nots. And thank God in the United States we've captured that number pretty well, but I think that in other parts of the world that number is not captured. But there's a second part to it as well. One could be the numbers, the second could be the cost of living in the United States. So for example, you're a part-time worker, you're making minimum wage, and you're working about 20 hours a week. By the time your taxes are cut out and everything, you're walking home with about $120. $120 in New York City gets you a closet. And if you're going into a suburban area or an area which is less expensive, you're still paying a minimum rent of $400 to $500 a month. Well, that money is just able to get you shelter. So food is now something that you have to go out and grab. In third world countries and in other areas in the world, though the standard of living might not be as great as America, the cost of living is much less as well. The cost of property, the cost of apartment, the cost of travel is much less. So you do have to put those factors in as well.
Okay, so now to that point, we have the home, the shelter, the transportation of America, which would take away from the money that would go to the food. Would you say that the hunger problem is man-made, or is it a natural thing?
It is natural, in a way. The reason why I would say that is that regardless of how great the system is, there will be people who will be less fortunate. And I think this is where the role of religion comes in as well, and role of government comes in, and it is very clear in our religion, and it's very clear in other religions as well. And I think the reason why God commanded us to help the needy is because God foresaw the needy. Though we can say, hey, maybe capitalism doesn't work, socialism doesn't work, communism works, maybe there should be Sharia law. All those things are accurate. Each person would have their own perspective on what would work and what would not work. But at the end of the day, everybody will not be equal. There will be people, even in an Islamic state, like at the time of Hazrat Umar, radiyallahu anhu, when he was walking the streets and he walked into a house where the mother complained of not having food, and he walked back and grabbed a bag of food and walked back to her. That was the Khalifa of Islam, and it was under his rule. It was under the rule of a Khalifa of the most perfect Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if we look at those circumstances and then we look at these circumstances and we compare, we would understand that, look, you know what, these things are going to happen, but we as human beings, we have been given this opportunity, and we've also been given this burden to go and help, and this is an obligation.
Mayor, same question. Do you think that hunger in America or worldwide, is it man-made, or is it just the natural order of events?
I agree. I agree with Seishan. There are some things that are man-made, obviously. If someone has the ability or the opportunity to provide employment, and you deny someone that opportunity to work and make a living wage, that certainly is man-made. But I agree that everything is cyclical. There are highs and lows in every branch of life, society, every generation, and one of the things where I think, and again, faith-based, government, education, we all come together. When I think one of the benefits that we have, and perhaps you're right about capturing the numbers of people that go hungry, very often we'll see babies in third world countries who are starving to death, and it breaks your heart. And not that it can't happen here. However, if we are able to know that there are families where food is needed We have programs in our schools, in our public schools, in our private and religious schools, where they have breakfast programs. They have lunch programs, either free or reduced rate, depending on the family circumstances. There are afternoon programs. In our senior center right here in Edison, the county provides hot lunches for senior citizens at a minimal cost. And every day they go to the senior center. And again, it's not done locally, but we work in conjunction with the other branches of government so that a hot lunch is provided. And if all they have when they go home is only something to make themselves a sandwich or a hot cup of tea, at least they've eaten a nutritional meal at lunchtime. And the children, they've had a breakfast program, they've had a lunch program, and if they're there for an after-school period of time, waiting for parents to come home from work to pick them up, there is another, an after-school program where they have nutritional snacks. So at least, perhaps we don't have the same starvation, people dying of starvation. They may go to bed hungry, but they are not starving to death. I think there's a slight difference, and there I agree with you.
Now I want to take it to the audience. What do you guys think? Is it a man-made problem, or is it a natural thing?
Assalamu alaikum. I think it's more of a man-made problem, maybe in this country, in America, because we have plenty food that's available through this modern technology of genetically modified, genetically engineered food that grows food at alarming rates. And, excuse me, in so many restaurants and facilities that throw away so much food on a daily basis. Food go bad at the store, they toss it out. At the restaurant, they toss it out. So maybe at some point that food can get to some of these hungry people.
Yes, Hars.
I agree with the brother who said it's man-made, because I've seen some research that demonstrates that there's enough food and resource on Earth that can sustain 3 times our current population. So that would indicate that it's not natural. It's not natural order that's lacking. It's man that's the issue.
But what about the starving child in Ethiopia? There's not really a lot of man-made things in his village.
Yeah, well, I think what I'm saying is that naturally there's enough food and resource, according to these studies, to feed 3 times our current population. So we're not distributing it properly. Man isn't distributing it properly. I think that's what I mean by it's man-made.
So there are sometimes statistics come out saying, something to the effect of the United States throws out enough food in 1 year to feed the whole world for 1 month. As a country, is our collective overindulgence in food by some a cause of hunger in others? Zishan, what do you think?
First of all, the problem is natural, but man can enhance it or reduce it. See, we have been given the opportunity to either enhance the problem or reduce the problem. Though it has come up naturally, I mean, it's very natural to be, not as well off as someone else might be, just because of your circumstances, or to be living in a country where there is a challenge with food. But then it's upon us to make it better, right? And then on the other side, we can make it worse by wasting a lot of food. Like the question that you're posing, there is a lot of wastage. There's a lot of wastage a lot of times based upon the regulations that government makes. And it's just there, and the mayor can attest to it, that the health department will make you throw out half your food if they ever check you. That's what they'll do. If they were to come over here to the National Ijtima and to look at all the food and stuff, they might say, well, this is not right, that is not right, throw this and throw that. Now, are we willing to throw that food out? No. Do we have to throw it out? Yes. So when you talk about, since I'm in the food industry, I can tell you that there is wastage, but there is no restaurant or no food service person that would want to waste food, because that's like throwing money down the water. You know, they would want to take as much as food possible and sell it because they're selling that food. That's all money for, that's all profit. But there are a lot of instances where there is regulation that prevents you from going ahead and selling certain type of food or reselling food. Now that can fall into something else as well, where the regulation is there for our health. There are certain food temperatures, there are certain things that we have to take a look at. And then it goes into disease, it goes into healthy food, unhealthy food, and a lot of other things. So it's not just one thing where, okay, this is how much food is being wasted. But of the food that is being wasted, how much actually has to be wasted as compared to how much is being wasted just because I did not feel like eating something, I threw it away. And that is a challenge, that is a man-made challenge, and that is a challenge that is your upbringing, right? Are you spoiled to the point where if you don't like something, you're just going to trash it? You might not like it, but there might be better ways of using that food than throwing it into a garbage can.
I want to do a poll of the audience. There's a yes and there's a no side. Raise your hand if you think that there has never been a time in world history that there has never been hungry people. Have there always been hungry people? If you think yes, raise your hand. If you think no, raise your hand. Interesting. Unanimous decision. To the panelists, Mayor, what do you think? Has there ever been a time when there have been no hungry people?
I cannot imagine. I cannot imagine. There have always been hungry people. Getting to your point, though, about wasting food, of course, none of you know me. I happen to be the mother of 9 and grandmother of 16. And I can assure you, we don't waste food. Not in our house. You take what you can eat and you eat what you take. And, and are there some spoiled people? Absolutely. I know of some who wouldn't think of eating a leftover. In my house, guess what? The leftovers sometimes taste better than the freshly made. But getting to your point of the health department, there are instances where Salmonella, E. coli, and these are deadly diseases, and the public, the general public, has to be protected, and that's why those health initiatives are in place. But I agree with you. I don't know what serving sizes you have in your restaurant, but you go to some restaurants, the serving sizes are so enormous, there is no way you could possibly eat that at one sitting. Now, if I were there, I would have them pack it, and it would be the next day's lunch. Some people won't. And of course, once someone has taken that fork, put it in their mouth or that spoon, and then put it back in that food, you don't want to eat that. You can't. I don't believe in sharing germs. I don't know if that's exactly what you wanted to hear, but quite seriously, the public needs to be protected. There has to be a way, though, to be able to feed the hungry. And not all the hungry are homeless. The vast majority are not homeless. They do have families, they do live in homes, and we have to, in some manner, seek them out, identify them, and make sure that they're provided for. And that is not Big Brother trying to overreach a family's responsibility. It is helping those who need our help.
Mayor, how would we seek them out? What's a strategy?
One of the ways that has been done is through the school system, because there are those who, the wages just are not there, and they qualify for reduced or free lunches. Your senior programs. We have a wonderful program here in Edison. It's called the Mr. Fix-It program. And this was brought in by one of our former mayors about almost 20 years ago. And this is to enable senior citizens to be able to stay in their homes. Now, He doesn't provide food for them. However, sometimes a small item needs to be fixed, maybe a leaky faucet, a light bulb, a glass pane, a screen, and you get someone in order to fix that, and the seniors really can't afford it. This program gives them free access. If you own your home and you're a senior citizen with a certain wage, it is a free program. You know, there is no cost to you. And this benefits the senior because money that they would give to the service person, they can now utilize on their food budget. So not every municipality has availed themselves, but this is a federal program. It's called CDBG, Community Development Block Grant. And it's been in effect here in Edison, as I said, for almost 20 years. It is hugely successful, and people have been identified as needing assistance, and it's run through, our senior program is run through our health department.
Any comments from the audience?
I have a question for the mayor of Edison. I'm from Chicago, and in Chicago we have a very burgeoning urban agricultural community into urban farming, urban gardening.
Yes.
And a lot of that has come from the people who may be considered more of the low class or the poverty as a response to help curb some of those food and hunger issues. And I wonder, does the city of Edison, the citizens of Edison, do you see that among them an inclination towards self-sufficiency and also getting back to some urban agriculture?
And that's a wonderful question. We actually, and one of our teachers at the elementary school started it because she started a garden. And the garden, she had the students actually plant and do the weeding, and they watched the produce grow. And of some of the produce was not ready to be picked in June. So during the summer, not only was she there on a daily basis to weed and water, but parents and children would come to assist her. And then they would give that fresh produce to the food banks, to not soup kitchens, they're actually food banks, so that people who came to these pantries would be able to bring fresh produce home. And I think that has really taken root around the country. And it is a wonderful program. When I was growing up, it was during World War II, and there were shortages of food back then as well. And I grew up in the city of Newark. We didn't have backyards where we could plant, but there were vacant lots. And they used to call them victory gardens. And you went and you had a plot of land in the city that was yours. And I remember my father putting a fence around our victory garden. And you planted whatever you want. And that was your produce to be able to bring home so that you had the fresh fruits and vegetables. And today they don't call them victory gardens. At the time, as I said, it was World War II, and it meant victory for us as a people because the nation was at war. And you know, the concept is the same.
Now, Mayor, you've offered some great personal solutions, some great government solutions. Zishan, because you're coming from a religious background, representing the Muslim Youth USA, why are religious groups always so interested in helping the hungry out?
Simple. It's the command of God. Absolutely. It's very, very simple. It's a part of our faith. Today, we attempted to break the Guinness Book of World Record by assembling the most number of hunger bags in 3 minutes, and we assembled 600. And why did we choose that project? Because those hunger relief packets are now going to be going to feed the hungry. And it is ingrained within us as members of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Youth Association that we will, in every step of the way, try to help the needy, whether they're hungry, whether they're weak, whether they don't have shelter, whether they need something else, whichever the challenge that they might have, it is incumbent upon us as people of faith to help. And that is what God commands us. We are created as brothers to one another. And it is one huge universal family. And if you look at it with that perspective, you would never want your brother to be sleeping hungry and his family to be sleeping hungry, or your sister to be sleeping hungry. And this is the way we look at humanity, through the eyes of brothers and sisters. And we will always make every attempt possible to help those that are in need. And I think that this not only goes with the traditions of Islam, but it also goes with the tradition of other religions. And it is one consistent message that God has always given to his people, that to help others. Because as God helps us, I mean, just imagine, all the resources that we have been given by God, and some of the things that we don't even realize, and that maybe we don't even thank him for. From a simple glass of water to the air we breathe is all provided to us by God. And if we cannot return the favor that God has given us and help the person who is next to us in need, then we are ungrateful to him.
Now, there's a lot of hunger organizations organizations that are combating hunger in America and New Jersey. So why haven't we solved hunger?
So I think one of the biggest things that we're not dealing with the issue of awareness when it comes to hungry people. Like, I know the mayor talked about how there's people that are hungry and they're not homeless. Like in high school, when I used to go to school for breakfast, I had a friend that had lunch at school and breakfast there, and that's the only meals that he had all day. And so these kind of things are like we don't know about. So there's an idea, there's like this thing where we have to have our community to work together in order to like help each other in that case. And so what we need to do is basically understand that this is a problem. We need to address it as a problem, because if 1 in 6 people in America are hungry, that's something that we have to push out there. So awareness is what we need to address first.
And to that point, there is that proverb that says, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach him to fish, you feed him for life. Are these food organizations, are they using too many resources and giving the food out and not enough resources to teach them how to get that food?
I agree with that philosophy. However, if someone is hungry, they do not have the strength to be able to get themselves a meal, maybe 2 fish. They've got to be fed first. You bring children to school, if they're hungry, they're not going to learn. If you put someone to work and they are, you give them a job, but they're hungry, they don't have the strength to complete the task. Not only the physical strength, but even the mental and emotional strength. I really believe that giving someone a hand is helping them up. It's lifting them up. It's not making them dependent. It's helping them to know that someone cares about them, so that when the opportunity is there, they want to be independent, and they will be. But if you just say, well, here's a fishing rod, and nobody, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. They must be fed. Nourishment is good for the body, and it's good for the soul.
Now, let's, that's all the time we have today. I want to go to closing remarks. And in the closing remarks, I'd like to have you guys focus on what the viewers at home can do locally from their own homes or from their own communities to really effectuate change and combat hunger in America.
One of the major things that viewers at home can do and around the world is, first of all, look at the challenge of hunger. Many of us don't even realize that it is a challenge within our neighborhoods, within our countries, within our cities. We look at it as something that's happening somewhere else in the world, but it's not happening within our city, within our town. That's the first thing, is to identify the problem, to see where the problem is. Secondly, charity begins at home. And you have to see how you can be more resourceful with food, how you can procure more food, do you know gardening? Do you know if, God forbid, something happens, how will you be, able to sustain your own self? And once you have learned that, and once you know that, then you can teach that to someone else. We talk about, teaching how if these organizations are teaching to other people or not. The fact of the matter is, the majority of these organizations might not know themselves on how to do grassroots work. This is more administrative. So, you have an organization, it's built up, and then somebody writes a check out for $100,000 to that organization. They have administrators and marketers that are just pushing out the food. There is no one way in which every single organization serves every single person. Each one has a different method, and there is no one perfect method. But having said that, when we become a part of the solution and are not a part of the problem, is when the problem starts to solve itself. And that's what we have to understand.
Mayor.
Absolutely. From the perspective of a mother and grandmother, you can teach your children, you can teach your grandchildren, right in your own home, to respect what God has given us, the food that nourishes us, to respect other people and know that, there are hungry people. There are people going to bed who are hungry, so don't waste. And if you start that in your own home, if each of us does it, not one home, not two homes, but every home, and we really teach our children, I think the problem can be solved. Can also be solved if you tell your children, if you teach your children to share. Too often, this is my food, and I keep it to myself. That's not what you do. Someone comes to your home, they sit at your table, you share your food with them. That's part of what we are as a humanity, as people of God, people of faith. We share with each other. It's taking care of your neighbor. And I do believe charity begins at home, but part of that charitable experience is to take care of yourself, but share with others. Share with others your knowledge, your treasure, if you will, and share with them your home and hearth. There is nothing better than to say to someone, there's always room for one more at my table. It can be done. I am proof of it. There is always room at my table. And as I said, I have a large family. We are not people of means. My husband was a factory worker. But you know what? We never wanted for anything. We do not live in luxury, never did. My husband and I are married more than 57 years, have never owned a new car. But that's okay. We had a vehicle that brought us from point A to point B. We didn't go on vacations because we couldn't afford it. But guess what? We always had a suntan because we coached our children in baseball and softball, in football and cheerleading. And we went on family picnics. I packed the baskets of food. And we went to the mountains and we had a picnic. Or we went down the shore. No, we couldn't afford to stay in a hotel or stay overnight. So we drove down in our station wagon with all 9 children in the morning, and we had our picnic lunch, and they still saw the seashore. They were still playing in the sand or climbing there in the mountains, romping around on the grass. And then we came home at night. But that was part of the experience. The other thing was that our door was always open to their friends. We always knew who their friends were. And without our children even realizing it, we were watching them. They didn't realize we were watching them, but we always knew where they were because most of the times they were in our home. And to this day, some of my children's friends are more than middle-aged, and they still remember when they come to Edison or when they think about us, they will still stop in, say hello, or call just to see how we're doing. Because I truly believe that we, as a human family, must reach out and be together. We are one family. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the panelists. Thank you very much to this great audience. We talked about some real problems out there about hunger in America. The amount of food pantries across the country is a testament to that. But the things we can do is, plant your own gardens. Don't waste your food. Spread awareness through walkathons or through massive events like world record breaking events, and volunteer at organizations that combat hunger. Go around your neighborhood, see who needs a little extra food and give food to your neighbors. Essentially, do what you can with what you have. And you as the viewer, you can continue this conversation from home on our YouTube channel, which you can see on the bottom of your screen. You can get in touch with us on Twitter. The link is right there. And most importantly, check us out on MTA at mta.tv. We'll see you next time at Real Talk USA.